Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the first episode of the We Talk All Sports podcast here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I am your host, Will Karen, and I'm joined by the one and only Julio Vasquez. Welcome in, Julio.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. First episode. How we feeling?
We're feeling great. We got some topics we want to talk about. Why don't we give a little teaser to the fans out there? We're going to start off today talking about the NBA draft and what we thought about that, winners and losers, and then might as well move into our NBA free agency predictions. And then moving forward, we're gonna give a little NFL preview, and then we're gonna also talk about the finals recap and the second apron just being a complete mess in the NBA.
My goodness, taking over. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so we got a lot to talk about, Julio. Let's start off with the draft. Give me your losers of the 2025 NBA draft.
Well, I didn't think what's that Knuppel that went 5?
Knipple.
Yeah, I don't think he was a top 5 pick worthy player. I think it was a reach. I think I wouldn't have took him top 6 at all. I think he was more of a 14 through 20 guy, so I don't see the upside of him. I think he's just a decent basketball player. He could be a nice role player, but there's no upside there. So I think that's my loser of the draft.
Yeah, my loser of the draft is going to be the Brooklyn Nets. They had 5 first-round picks and didn't really use them. And they took 5 guards. Close second is the Phoenix Suns because they decided to take a bunch of centers and trade their first-round pick next year for Mark Williams, which is a complete disaster. I don't know what they're doing.
Right, they traded for Mark Williams, which I was like, good trade. Then you draft a center again. That makes no sense. And they both play the same type of role. It makes no sense. 2 non-shooting bigs.
I think their biggest problem is they're so traumatized from the fact that they had too many guards the past 3 years. Going into the draft, they really needed to stockpile on big men because they were lacking in size. I think there was a lot of times last year where Kevin Durant was playing the 5, and that didn't work out for them. Just like
they were also
Lakers. Yeah, and you think about the Lakers, I mean, they did the same thing with LeBron at the 5. LeBron's not a 5, he's a 4 at max. Maybe he plays best at a 3. So
yeah.
I don't really see the logic of Phoenix drafting a center and then drafting a wing that's kind of a center in the second round. But we'll see what happens there. They gave up their first round pick next year, which is ridiculous when they have no business doing that at all. Moving on, the Pelicans, they gave up their first round pick next year as well for Derek Queen. I like Derek Queen. I think Derek Queen's a great player, but I don't think that's value. Give me your opinion on that one.
Well, the thing is that pick is unprotected, I believe. So, and who knows how good the Pelicans are going to be next year. So that's a great asset for the other team, and an amazing draft class coming up next year. So I think that's a big loss for the Pelicans as well.
The West is deep. You go from 1
Super
to 11,
stacked.
And you got probably 11 perennial teams that can make it. You had 12 last year. I mean,
and it's usually the number 1 seed is going to be set from the first 50 games. You'll know who's going to be the number 1 seed, but 2 to 8, it's all 2 to 3 game separation. So it's like there's no telling whether you're going to be the 2nd seed or you're going to be the 8th seed fighting in a play-in, and you could be the same level skill of a team. So that's the big thing in the West. It's like, man, you could be such a great team, but you could end up being in a playing game and not even making it to the playoffs regardless, just because of how good the West is.
Yeah, and you got teams that are completely selling off assets. You got teams like Phoenix. They gave up Durant, obviously trying to get off Beal's contract. The Memphis Grizzlies just gave up Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic, which many think is a win for the Magic and a loss for the Grizzlies. And many people are
for
questioning
5 first-round picks.
Yeah, and many people are questioning why the Grizzlies even did it in the first place when they have John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. But I don't know. And this leads to the next conversation of the second apron just being a complete disaster. How is that affecting the Warriors going into the second year of it existing?
I'll tell you what. We're about, I believe, $40 million away from hitting that second apron. And we have only 10 players under contract. That means you have to get 5 players under contract, and we only have $40 million to spend. So we're in a really terrible situation, and the fact that Jonathan Kuminga is a free agent and he wants to get paid high money doesn't help at all. I truly believe the team wants to retain Jonathan Kuminga, but at the end of the day, if Brooklyn goes out there and offers him a $35-40 million contract, there's just no way we're gonna retain him because the Warriors don't have the money. You can't hit the second apron. It's gonna make your team just plummet the next few years. So
yeah.
I think there's a young, hungry team out there willing to pay Kuminga the money that he wants. That's the only way he doesn't retain as a Warrior. But besides that, I think the Warriors are willing to give 30 and less. Nothing more, though.
Yeah, and there's always a cap hit with certain contracts, and Kuminga is going to be no exception, obviously. You obviously have Jimmy Butler on the books, you got Draymond Green still on the books, you got Steph Curry on the books.
I didn't like that Butler contract at all. 2 years, what was it, like 55 million, 60 million a year? That was too much money for Jimmy at this stage of his career. Seriously.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, like, players are going to demand a high contract, a high payroll. I mean, Jason Tatum just got $350 million over 5 years. Jaylen Brown, he got $304 million over 5 years. I'm going to shift this conversation to the Celtics now because they just traded 2 players that would be seen as stars on other teams in Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis when they aren't even getting paid supermax contracts. They're both getting paid max level contracts. Maybe Porzingis is just under a max, but Holiday was surely getting paid 4 years, $121 million. That's a max contract. And it just brings up a really big discussion because I remember when Brad Stevens signed Holiday to that extension the year the Celtics won the championship before the playoff run started. I remember Connor, who we're going to be doing the Big 3 radio show with in the fall, so tune into that, of course. He said this means they're not going to re-sign Derek White. And I was convinced Derek White would be on the chopping block of being traded. But I think Brad Stevens made the right move. You had to cut 2 players, maybe another one, in Sam Hauser soon. We don't know what's going to happen there yet. I think they're waiting to trade Sam Hauser till free agency and the new league year opens, which I'm completely fine with. But I think the biggest issue with the second apron is you're discrediting teams that want to build from the ground up through the draft. Like the Celtics, you paid 2 players 2 supermax contracts that you picked in 2017 and 2018, and now you're getting punished for it. I look at the Warriors. You picked Kuminga. I mean, he's going to be
pick Curry. You picked Clay. You picked Draymond.
Yeah,
picked all these players.
Yeah, it's like the value of drafting and signing and re-signing your players is becoming a lot harder with the second apron. And it just goes to show that there's a lot of people complained when, in 2019, when so many stars went across the league, when Kevin Durant went to the Nets and Kyrie Irving went to the Nets, and everyone was like, oh my God, there's no loyalty. There's going to be no loyalty now. There's literally going to be no loyalty. I'm surprised the Celtics still have Jaylen Brown right now. I'm going to be honest with you because the price that is being thrown around for the Raptors to get him with a 9th pick or the Rockets giving up the 10th pick, like, it's just ridiculous what is going on in the NBA. There's going to be no loyalty anymore. Players are going to try and get the biggest contract because they know there's teams out there that can afford it because their books are empty. Let's talk about Portland. I mean, let's talk taking on the Jrue Holiday contract. You got the Nets. They have so much cap space. They got off that Kyrie contract and that Kevin Durant contract, and they're only paying Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton, the highest paid players on that team.
Yeah, I mean, they're not paying them a lot.
Yeah, and I look at the Knicks. I mean, they're going to get in the second apron soon. I mean, you got to remember, yes, Jalen Brunson took a contract cut, but, like, Karl Anthony Towns, his contract's going to kick in eventually. Mikal Bridges' contract is going to kick in eventually, and I think a lot of people
they're probably going to have to trade Mikal. That's probably
I think they're going to have to trade OG Anunoby. $212 million over 5 years is what they just gave him, and I think that is going to hit the second apron very, very hard in New York, and it's just like the second apron is destroying big market teams, and that's what Adam Silver wants. He wants to destroy the big market teams. You got you're not going to see a finals of Boston LA again for a while, probably. Unfortunately, you're not going to see the Warriors and the Celtics in the finals again for a while, probably, because Adam Silver wants the Pacers and the Thunder to play in the finals every single year.
Yeah, he
and
wants
it's
small
ridiculous
market teams.
because I don't understand why these small market teams are getting credited. Like, I think there should be an even playing field where you can pay your players that you drafted the market value without having to trade them for scraps like the Celtics did with Kristaps Porzingis. They got Georges Niang back.
Georges Niang. Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
And then they got 2 second-round picks. Like, what's that going to do? Like, let's just sit around real quick and wait for someone to get paid in 10 years. Like, Adam Silver is defying what a league should do to support its players, and I would not be surprised if in 2 years this goes to complete crap when Jaylen Brown's contract hits $70 million and Jason Tatum's hits $80 million per year, and they're like, okay, we're back in the second apron because we have to pay Derek White as well. What do we do? And it just makes players that are homegrown harder to retain. And that is the biggest knock on the NBA after this season. And it made me not want to watch it, Julio. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I watched some of the NBA Finals, but it made me not want to watch it because it was like, the Thunder drafted Jalen Williams. The Pacers drafted Tyrese Halliburton, who got injured. Prayers up to Tyrese Halliburton, of course.
Yeah.
He had an unbelievable playoff run. But the biggest thing is they might not even be in those jerseys in the next 5 years. And that's insane to think about, all because of the second year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I see, like, Jalen Williams for the Thunder. Like, how are you going to be able to pay Shea, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren even? Then you already gave Hardenstein his money, but, I mean, like, you're not going to be able to keep that team for longer than 4 years. I mean, it's good that Jalen Williams is still under his rookie contract. Chet Holmgren is still under his rookie contract. But 2 years, they're going to come quick and they're going to want that extension. And, I mean, the way the market looks, a Jalen Williams is going to demand 40 million minimum. So
when you drop 40 points
in
the finals, you become very, very valuable.
Yeah,
so with Jaylen Brown last year.
It just becomes difficult to re-sign all these players when you have the second apron and you have all this money that you have to pay to these guys. And it just sucks that, like you said, they built this team through the draft. And they're going to continue building through the draft because of all the picks they have, because of their smart GM, Sam Presti, all the trades he's been able to make, all the picks he's been able to acquire. But at the end of the day, it's like, it makes them look like geniuses because of all the picks they have before the second apron hit. Because now you're drafting all these guys that you're not going to be able to keep. Or I guess you're just going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. You're drafting to replace because you have to get rid of them before you have to pay them.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's going to piss off a lot of fans is you're going to fall in love with players like the Jason Tatums of the world, the Steph Currys of the world, the Jaylen Browns of the world, the Jalen Brunsons. But the thing is, like, if you have 2 stars on your team, you're going to have to pick one. And I think that's the thing that's so frustrating about this. And it all goes back to the NBA wanting to have expansion, wants it to be an even playing field. What went so successful for the NHL about 6 years ago? The Vegas Golden Knights. They were an expansion team. What did they do their first year? They made the Stanley Cup Finals and lost, but they still won it. 5 years later, they still won it. And it's like, Adam Silver is probably sitting there like, wow, look at all the money that got dumped into a sport that's not even a top 5 sport in America, really. And it's all because of an expansion team. I'll tell you right now, if Adam Silver doesn't go back to Seattle, that's gonna raise a lot of eyebrows. I know Vegas is in the books, really, but
yeah,
Seattle's got to get a team.
I mean, really, it's got to be 2 teams if they're going to make an expansion. And the cities that come to mind is Las Vegas and Seattle, for sure. And then you would move
you're going to have to move a team into the East.
Which makes sense because the Grizzlies are in the East regardless. Move the Grizzlies into the East. You could move the Pelicans to the East too. Yeah. They're really both Eastern teams. And I think I'm missing another one in the Eastern Conference that's already deep in the West. There's a few teams that are middle but more left and right. So it would just make sense to move them to the Eastern Conference because they're traveling so much and it's fatiguing their players.
Are you calling for realignment, Julio?
Yes.
Calling for realignment in the NBA?
Yes.
The way that the conferences are ran?
Yes, there's no way the Memphis Grizzlies should be a Western Conference team. No way.
Agree with you. I mean, I think the one team that comes to mind that could be in the West if geological things go in the right direction is Milwaukee. They're in the Central Time Zone. They're closer to the Mountain West Time Zone, if I'm going to be honest.
And then that brings up Minnesota as well. So there's a few teams they can move around. If they add 2 Western Conference teams, which would be Las Vegas and Seattle, there's definitely 2 teams you can move from the Western Conference right into the East.
Team that comes to mind off the rip is sorry, I had to move my cat.
That's great.
Back to what we were talking about. Jiggy's a distraction. Get out of here.
Come on, Jiggy.
He's just sniffing around right now. He's like, ooh, a microphone. But I think the second apron's going to destroy the NBA. And I think Chris Gasper said it perfectly. It's an absolute disgrace to the league. And it makes teams like Dallas, who trade their superstar away, more attractive to Adam Silver. Like, hey, let's give Luka Doncic to the biggest market to raise viewership and then give the biggest star in the draft to you. It all goes back to me thinking that there's some fishy things going on in the NBA. But I'm not going to get into that here. That's another.
I mean, for sure. You telling me a 1.8% chance get to the number 1 overall pick?
You could say the
That's
same
ridiculous.
thing about Atlanta last year. And that draft was horrible, so no one cared.
Seriously.
Who's the number 1 pick? Zachariah Richeche?
Richeche.
He's a role
player
at most.
And it was supposed to be Alexander Sarr, but he didn't want to play in Atlanta. He pulled an Ace Bailey, so he went to Washington.
Yeah, let's get into that now, that we've got our second apron talk out the way. Back to the draft real quick. Ace Bailey was drafted by the Utah Jazz, and the Celtics' former general manager, Danny Ainge, made a bold move, which he's done year after year, drafting Jaylen Brown, trading back and drafting Jason Tatum. I mean, he's always hit it on the money, so credit to him. But the biggest question is, why would you draft a player that doesn't want to go to your team?
Well, Julio, you want me to be honest? I feel like you want me to be honest?
I feel like you've been following the story more than me, so go right ahead on this one.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, if I was a DM, you damn right I'm doing the same thing. I'm drafting you at 5. You're coming to my team because guess what? What are you gonna do? Sit out and I sign the contract? What are you gonna do? Play bad? Nobody else is gonna want you. Nobody else gonna want you.
Stewart.
Right? You can't be Samar Stewart in the NBA, buddy. So at the end of the day,
say it, but NIL is increased entitlement in college sports.
Yeah, that's what it's been. That's what it's been. I already got money, so that's how he's coming into the league. Thinking, I already got money, so I could make decisions for myself.
Will Campbell signed a $42 million deal with the Patriots that was fully guaranteed. I'm like, where's that money coming from? Where was that 10 years ago? Like, Travion Henderson still hasn't signed his deal, I don't believe. So that's a whole nother thing to get into.
Yeah, they're getting
NIL's ruining it. It is.
Yeah, no. Right now they're getting the first rounders out of the way. Most of the first rounders are signing. Then they're obviously going to keep, going to the lower rounds, signing who they have to sign there. But back to the Ace Bailey situation. If I'm Danny Ainge, you damn right. At 5, he was the best player available, no doubt about it.
I think that's a steal.
Yeah. At 5, because I thought
he player at 5. That's a steal.
Before obviously, Dylan Harper is the better prospect, right?
I agree with you. Yes.
But before the whole thing, I was like, man, Dylan Harper might be the better prospect, but Ace Bailey to San Antonio sounds way more intriguing to me, just because they could use a 3. Yeah. They could have used, but now you're dealing with a situation where you might start 3 guards with Castle, Fultz, and Harper. But if you have Ace Bailey in there, you have Fultz at the 1, Castle at the 2, Bailey at the 3. Find yourself a 4. Maybe that could be Harrison Barnes, which good luck if Harrison Barnes is your 4. And then obviously you got Vic at the 5. That team would have looked amazing. Size, shooting, everything.
You got De'Aaron
really.
Fox too. Everyone forgets about De'Aaron Fox. That is a good team. Like, do not. No,
they're deep too. Well, they're deep.
Yeah, like they got Jeremy Sochan as well. Don't be
Keldon Johnson.
Top 5.
Keldon Johnson, Devin.
They might be 5 in wins next year, like OKC was 2 years ago.
I think they're gonna have a Houston type of rise that we saw last year, where Houston was the second seed. I think San Antonio could come up, be the third, second seed this year. That's how good that team is. Obviously, assuming Wemby, Fox stay healthy, that team could do damage. They're young, they're explosive, they play defense. And most importantly, they have playmaking all over the place. Fox, Castle, remember Chris Paul is still up there. I mean, that team could do damage next year. Seriously.
And there's a team like I think of automatically, like Dallas too. They could get Kyrie back sooner than later possibly, but that's all up in the air. He just re-signed with them, of course. Anthony Davis is a question mark, but I think Cooper Flagg's going to fit in the NBA right away. I think he's going to be like putting on a new shoe. Like he's going to it takes you a second to break it in, but like he'll be fine. Like once you get to like January, he could be like top 20 in scoring type of player.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the teams that gave OKC the most trouble last year was the Dallas Mavericks, with or without the Anthony Davis. So there's a lot of potential. I think that
and
team
you got
right
Davis
now
at the 4 too, which is huge.
I think that team right now on paper is a championship contending team. But obviously you have to take health into factor. We don't know what that's going to look like next year. We don't know how quickly Kyrie Irving's going to heal. We don't know if Anthony Davis is going to be able to play 65 games and go into the playoffs healthy. But my goodness, that starting five looks ridiculous. Kyrie Irving at the 1. You got Cooper Flagg at the 3, Davis at the 4. You put Lively or Gafford, whichever one you want, at the 5. Then you probably throw PJ Washington at the 2. Clay Thompson.
Clay Thompson.
Clay at the 2. I mean, that's a dangerous team.
Nah, and it just goes back to the point of, I remember in the 2008 Celtics championship documentary when Paul Pierce said, the hardest part of the season is going out west and playing the Texas Triangle, where you play San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. That is going to be the hardest stretch for any team now. Because you play a team with possibly a generational star in the making of Victor Wembanyama. I have his rookie card, by the way, so...
You have two. Well, you have two of the.
I have his rookie card. I had to mention it.
That's gonna be worth. That's gonna be worth. That's worth some money now.
Yes, it is.
I'll tell you.
I'm a Spurs fan now, baby.
The state of Texas has two of the best prospects in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and it's like you wonder, like, what would have happened if Zion Williamson actually worked out? Because like he hasn't really worked out, and it's like
injuries. I mean,
Stephen A. Smith says he likes to fine and dine, but that's just his opinion, of course. I don't take anything ESPN says for credibility.
Man, stay away from the P star Zion, please.
He will eat the table. Stephen A. said he'll eat the table, I guess.
Rated R Zion.
Yeah, basically. All right, now let's move on to the finals. OKC is your 2025 NBA champion. I honestly thought if they didn't win Game 7 that they would never win a title. I think that was the
And you're referring to OKC?
Yes. I think that either team that lost that game would have got absolutely screwed, because next year in the West, every team is stronger. You got, of course, Dallas. They're coming back healthy. You got Houston. They got Kevin Durant now. A lot of people aren't really, like, looking out for that. You got San Antonio fully healthy, presumably. And then you move on and you look down the ladder. You still got the Nuggets there. The Nuggets are pretty good. I mean, they gave OKC 7 games this year. I mean, Nuggets are still there. They got that championship DNA.
They have Nikola Jokic, best player in the world. So,
and then of course, who knows what year 2 Jimmy Butler on the Warriors could look like? Y'all could burst on the scene like you did this year.
I think the Warriors will be a sneaky team for the next 3 years. But I don't truly know how high that's. Well, the ceiling, we know how high it is when you have Steph Curry performing peak, Jimmy Butler peak. But I don't know. It's just all right here when it comes to the Warriors. I just say they're a sneaky team for the next 3 years until Curry retires. I'll just call them a sneaky team.
Yeah.
Can't get hopes too high, but definitely can't put them too low because they're still dangerous.
Yeah, and a team that I think of right after them is Minnesota. 2 years ago, they made it to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, they need. I want to see what happens with who is that kid they just drafted from Kentucky, and everyone hypes up.
Rob Dillingham.
Yeah, I want to see how Rob Dillingham looks at the one, because Mike Conley's
Yep.
getting old. We'll see
Yep.
what happens this year. They didn't really use Dillingham that much because he's a
It's a
raw
great
product.
development. It's a great development year. I mean, he got drafted into a really good team as a really talented prospect, but you got to sit and learn behind Mike Conley. And I have a lot of doubts on Mike Conley as a player, but not the person. So there's no doubt in my mind that
He's
Mike
a great
Conley.
leader. I would
Yeah,
love to
there's
have
no
him in Boston.
there's no doubt in my mind that Mike Conley has Rob Dillingham ready to become that number one point guard in Minnesota.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens, of course, as we keep going down the ladder. I mean, everyone forgets LeBron's coming back another year, maybe, and you still got Luka Doncic, so that team will be in the mix. I mean, there's a lot of teams, even the Clippers, man. I mean, there's so many teams. You don't know. And that's why I'm saying you make it so far to the NBA Finals, and then you might not go back ever. I mean, look at the Dallas Mavericks. They went last year, and then they didn't even make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, it's bold to say that if the Thunder lost this year, they'll never win a championship in the next 20, 30 years. That's bold to say. Because
it's bold, but I can see it with how the West looks, is my point.
No, I get it. It's super talented. The second apron is gonna hit at some point.
Yeah,
but
they're gonna have to
at the end of the day,
or something.
But at the end of the day, I mean, that's still a really talented roster, a really young roster, and a team that has a plethora of first round picks over the next 10 years. So I think I have to challenge you on that. I think it's difficult to say. I wouldn't say they'll never win again if they lost this year. But on the other hand, I will say that about Indiana. I don't think Indiana's ever going to be back here. I don't think Indiana's ever going to be back here again.
I said that in our group chat. I said, these next 30 minutes, when Indiana was leading at halftime of Game 7, I said, these next 30 minutes are going to decide a championship of a miracle for Indiana or basketball hell. And I hate to say it, but Indiana is now in basketball hell with Tyrese.
They'll never go again. They're just, when I look at that roster, well, they're just not talented enough. Like, obviously, you had your Cinderella run. You made it to the finals. We've seen it happen before. There's been Cinderella teams. But if you don't win, you're not making it back. I mean, look at the Dallas Mavericks in
2009. Everyone forgets that run with Dwight Howard, of course.
And then I was going to point to the Mavericks in 2011. They made it. Cinderella story. They won. But did they ever go back after? No.
Yeah.
They just weren't talented enough, and that's the same thing I'm looking at the Pacers. I just don't think they're gonna be back. There's a lot of powerhouse in the Eastern, and the Pacers just don't have it. Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, and Benedict Mathurin, they're not gonna win you a championship again. Like, they're not gonna get you there again. I have a lot of doubts about that.
And I one more thing, dear everyone who is disrespecting the Celtics after they won it all last year, saying they had a cakewalk to the finals. I never want to hear that again, because Indiana went through the gauntlet to get to the finals this year, and the Celtics swept them. So I don't want to hear nothing anymore. Oh, they had a Mickey Mouse run. This ain't 2020 in the bubble where you get 5 months off, and then everyone's like, come on down to Disney World and let's go win the champions. Like, no, the Celtics swept the 1 seed in the East this year. Like, I never want to hear anything again. What was the difference with the Cavs this year? They lost in the second round again. Oh, they won more games in the regular season. They had the same damn team. I mean, like, I never want to hear any more disrespect about the 2024 Celtics ever again. Yes, the East was weaker than it was this year, for sure. But at the end of the day, like, the Celtics were a dominant team, and I think you can agree with that at this point.
No, they were definitely a dominant team. The starting five performed amazing. I mean, they definitely had one of the best net ratings in that starting five of recent history, obviously. But I just think people look at the Celtics that year and they're gonna have their opinions, obviously, because of the road trip to get there.
It's all Lakers fans. All the Lakers fans want to talk crap. Get out of here.
And I think for the most part, what people hold is that they wanted to see Minnesota. They thought Minnesota was a better matchup for the Celtics, but unfortunately,
because the Celtics did struggle against Minnesota last year.
But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to tell you this: to win a championship, you need luck, you need to be good, and other things have to fall in line. So that the Dallas beating Minnesota, It had nothing to do with y'all. It just happened. It just happened to happen. Good for y'all. Dallas was a better matchup for y'all. Y'all win the NBA championship. So who cares?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. As soon as Dallas won that game, Game 5, I'm like, they're gonna win. They're gonna sweep them, or they're gonna win in 5 because Dallas cannot play defense. They couldn't. And what did they do? They said, all right, Jaylen Brown, it's time for you to become the owner of Luka Doncic, like you will be for the next 10 years of your career. And he did just that, and that's why he won Finals MVP. I don't care about points or none of that. He shut down Dallas' best player and made him quit in Game 3. That's the
right.
bottom line. But yeah, I think this year's finals was all right, but like it wasn't like top notch, like peak NBA finals aura. A lot of people are on social media like, oh, you got rid of the logo on the court, or the scorebug's not as pretty, or the announcers are crap. We miss Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy or whatever.
Mark Jackson.
The whole NBA vibe right now is so
well. It was
negative.
It was the lowest viewed of all time, right?
Yeah, it was a very low-rated finals. Yes, Game 7 was watched because anyone's going to watch Game 7. People treated Game 7 in the finals like a Super Bowl. That's just how it is.
I'll tell you this, though. Right before the finals happened, I did write an article saying the series is going to be better than anticipated. A lot of people were thinking the Thunder were going to get it done in 5, maybe 6, but I had it being a competitive series just because of the run that the Pacers were on. I didn't think they were the better team. I didn't think they were more talented. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton is better than Shea. I don't think Pascal Siakam is better than J-Dub, to be honest. But I had it being competitive just because of the run the Pacers were on, and it ended up going to 7. So I think it was good for both teams.
I thought
small
it was
market
a great
teams.
Series for
It
small
was.
Market teams, but I don't think you reached the peak of the NBA Finals. Like Game 7, after Halliburton got injured, I was like,
yeah.
The Thunder are gonna win.
It went down.
Like, the Thunder
it went down.
I knew the Thunder, and it kind of ruined the moment. Like the NBA has been clawing back for viewership this year, and the fact that
who knows?
Got injured in Game 7 completely ruined it.
Who knows what would have happened because Tyrese Halliburton came out firing. It reminded me that injury reminded me of the 2019 Kevin Durant injury when he came back. Game 3, Game 4, he pulled up on that 3-pointer and he popped his Achilles in the air. Game 5, popped his Achilles in the air, and then after that, you go down 3-1, and you just knew it was over.
Every time I talk about that, I just think of Drake's face, where he's like, when we all know damn well he was very, very happy that happened because the Raptors would not have won that series if Durant does not get injured, let alone getting lucky with Klay Thompson getting injured in Game 6. But to be fair,
seriously,
though, I mean, that series 19 really revived the NBA. It did, because
that was a great series.
The Warriors were on a dominant run, and it seemed like I kind of call it like the first year Warriors had played the Cavs and beat them. Like, that's what their team was pretty much, except they didn't have Sean Livingston and whoever the hell else they had on the bench. But, like, it was, like, the core without Durant, because Durant just showed up in free agency, of course, because that's what he does. If you have a chance of winning a ring, Kevin Durant will be at your front door. That's what happens. But anyway, back to my point. 2019 was a very fun series. I think that's one of the most underrated NBA Finals of the past 10 years. What's your favorite NBA Finals, though? What was your favorite NBA Finals of the past 10 years?
Unbiased opinion, 2022 Golden State Warriors win. I mean, it was a great series. It was a great series. What do you want me to say?
The Celtics gave you a run, but we didn't have the horses. We played 2 7-game series, so we were slapped either way.
I mean, let's be honest. That's been the best series. That was the best series in the last 5 years, 2020 to 2025. The best series was the 2022 Warriors Celtics. It wasn't It wasn't.
I mean, if we're talking 2016, so easily.
Yeah. The last 10 years. 2016 finals. I think 2016 finals was probably the best in the last 15. That's how good it was.
It kind of sucks that that's like been the last really good one. I mean, I was excited for 18 when LeBron was basically on his Jordan run of like just beating everyone on his own.
Got swept.
But I mean, the Celtics brought him 7 with a bunch of rookies. So I mean, after that,
Jason Tatum rookie year dunks on LeBron. Oh, I love that
tough.
series. No, that was a great
tough.
series. That was a great
It was a
series.
good series. It was. I mean, but LeBron, he was on a different level. And I just remember, I don't know who else. I think I was watching the game with my dad and my mom, and I was so pissed that they lost because I was like, how awesome would it be for a bunch of second year and rookies to go to the finals, and they just missed. I didn't care that they would have lost.
Just making it.
That would have been awesome. That Jason Tatum's like in the finals his first year, and then he had to wait about like 4 more years, and then he made it back and lost, of course.
I mean, in a sense, that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Chet Holmgren, technically third year, but he was injured his whole first year, so second year of playing. J-Dub is his second or third season now. I'm not sure. But, then you have Cason Wallace, second year. Oshman Dang, he's like second, third year as well. Just a lot of second and third year guys.
Aaron
Wiggins, I think that's his third year. A lot of second and third year guys in that Oklahoma City Thunder roster. Oh, the dude they drafted this year that was hurt all year got an A+. Nikola Topic got an A+ on the grade without contributing at all. So you gotta love that.
Next year, that's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, if he turns out to be a star, that's gonna be a problem for the NBA's ratings because then it's gonna be an OKC riot.
And that's the problem because they're not done. They have top 14 picks the next 4 or 5 years. You never know
though. I don't think there's a rookie that can come in and make this team better. I really don't.
Right. But when the second apron hits, Jalen Williams has to go. They have somebody to step up. They
gotta trade Hardenstein. They're paying him $55 million. That's too much for a center. Way too much. He's a great player. I love Hardenstein, but I don't think that's a contract that you want to absorb. You're also paying Caruso as well. You're gonna have to pay the Supermax.
Caruso's gonna have to go at the end of his contract. He's done. He's done
right
what
now,
he's got to do.
That Supermax is gonna kick the crap out of them because their budget is not like a New York or a Boston budget
at all.
It's gonna hit them.
And Shea's gonna demand north of $60 million. I'm already seeing it.
He's gonna want like $400 million 5 years, and I don't blame him. He's earned it.
Yeah.
I mean, if Tatum's getting $350, Shea should get $400, maybe $375 at the minimum. But like he's gonna get above that
for sure.
And he's the next guy, honestly, because Luka Doncic, he was the guy until Nico Harrison sent him over to LA, and he was gonna get $380. Now he's gonna get nowhere near that, unfortunately.
I've been seeing when Cooper Flag got drafted, they're like this is the face of the franchise. But I'm like, hold on. The Mavericks have Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. So is Cooper Flag automatically the face of the franchise because he was the number 1 overall pick and he's deemed to be better than those two? But right now, Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis are better players, far more experienced. I don't think you can call Cooper Flag the face of the franchise immediately.
You know what I love,
coming into a team like that?
I love that New England is finally getting love for basketball players. For the longest time, New England basketball players were not getting that hype.
At all.
Of course, yeah. And now we got players like Cooper Flag. We had that kid from Kentucky that passed away. God rest his soul. I forget his name off the top of my head. He was very close to Jaylen Brown.
I have it on the top of my tongue, but I'm forgetting his name as well.
Yeah,
Terrence. I know it's Terrence Clark.
Yeah, Terrence Clark. God rest his soul. Unbelievable player. He was going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. I mean,
and then
just so many talented players now. And, I mean, if you really want to go watch a good game in Mass, just go up to Lawrence. Go up to Lawrence Academy. They got some talent brewing up there. I mean, they got
and by the way, the projected number 1 overall pick next year, AJ Desanya, he's from Brockton, Mass. So
I know.
You're getting people.
We're getting so much love in Mass. I love it. Maine, Mass, New Hampshire, who cares? We're all getting love over here, even though you're in the middle of nowhere. All the way.
Yeah, no, nobody makes it out of here, man. We're praying though. Pop Watson, what's up? Please make it. Please.
You did. You made it out. But anyway, back to the point of I think the Thunder will win another title within the next 5 years. You just got to get that first one. I would not be surprised though if the Celtics see them again. Because they kept their 3 core pieces, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and a lot of people were like, who's the third? I knew it was Derek White, A lot of people question that.
Well, you gotta give it a rest because there's been a lot of trade rumors about Derek White being also shipped out.
I don't think he will. They're out of the
And a lot of
apron.
and they're saying a lot of teams.
I said this straight up. I said this the other day. Derek White is not going to get traded after the draft. He's not. I don't see it. I really don't. If he gets traded after the draft, I'd be shocked. Because what are you going to get now that's worth your time?
And I'm hearing a lot of people calling for Jaylen Brown. They're calling for Jaylen Brown too.
I don't think they're getting rid of him. I mean, in Brad Stevens' press conference, he literally said the core pieces that we are going to build around going forward is Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Peyton Pritchard. I don't really agree with Peyton Pritchard being on that list. Yeah, he's the defending sixth man of the year, but that guy cannot defend to save his life.
Well, Peyton,
so, whatever.
I'm saying you have Peyton Pritchard, but you also just acquired Fernie Simmons from Portland. And if you want me to be honest, I think Simmons is it's Simmons.
Yeah, I think they're gonna get rid of him. They're trying to get rid of as much money.
They could, but if you're asking me, and you could say whatever, I'd rather have Fernie Simmons on my team than Peyton Pritchard. That could just be me, but he's taller. He can give you a little bit more on defense, and he could be just as good of a scorer. Obviously, not the shooter that Peyton Pritchard is, but he's a very good volume scorer. He could run. He could run the bench unit. He could run a bench unit.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, like, I don't know what the starting five will look like next year. It's probably going to be something like, if they keep everyone on the roster right now, maybe like a Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and then hell, maybe they say,
you gotta find something.
Let's give a run with the first round pick we just got in Hugo Gonzalez, because I've heard he's pretty good, but we'll see. I mean, there's like, the Celtics are not going to be the Celtics that they were last year, or the year before. They're not. They don't have Jason Tatum. They're going to suffer from that, and they just lost Luke Cornett too, I think. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the Celtics, but I'm interested to see what happens.
The way I've seen things go, you seen Victor Wembanyama got hurt from the Spurs, then out of nowhere, Fox was out. You seen Davis get hurt, then you seen Kyrie Irving get hurt, and then Dallas gets the number 1 overall pick. Don't be surprised if some fishy injury happens with Jaylen Brown, and all of a sudden the Celtics are in top 5 pick range. Then they come out, draft somebody next year, and they're back on track. You just never know. The league has been so unpredictable.
AJ came to the Celtics facility. He came to the Auerbach Center.
Can you imagine the Celtics get the number 1 overall pick next year and they draft AJ? I would cry. Seriously. I'd have to punch somebody.
Just think of a starting five. AJ, what's his last name? Devonsa? We're close enough. We're close enough. And then you got Tatum at the 4, Brown at the 3, White at the 2, and then if you want to keep Anthony Simons, hell with it. Put him at the 1.
That's a solid 5.
Yeah, after getting rid of Porzingis and Holiday, baby, I'm ready for that. We'll see. I mean, a lot of Celtics insiders are saying, like, they're not going to take this year very seriously. Maybe they pull
which is what I'm saying. It's just what I'm saying. You're going to see, bro, I'm telling you, midseason comes around, you're going to see a Jaylen Brown injury. You're going to see a Derek White injury. Like, it's going to be depleted. It's going to be a depleted Celtics team this year, and it's going to be sad at the moment. But next year comes around, the team gets a top 5 overall pick. You draft either a center or a really good forward, and now you're back on track, and you're like, damn, that team looks good.
Last time they got the number 1 pick was when they were in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2018.
Yep.
Where they lost to Cleveland, but
even though they traded back to 3 and got Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knew Markelle Fultz was going to be a bust, and LeVar Ball is a pain in the ass. So, I mean, that was the obvious pick. I think Danny Ainge is like, all right, Markelle Fultz, you played, did he play for Yale or something like that, or Washington?
Did he go to Kentucky?
No, he went to Washington, I think. The Pac-12 sucks. That's the bottom line. The Pac-12 sucks.
Man, Markelle Fultz was so terrible I didn't even pay attention to him. To be honest, I didn't even pay attention to it. I can't
believe Philly said, "Hey, we'll take him." Yeah, have him.
I seen bust written all over him. I thought Philly was gonna pull some crazy stuff and they were gonna draft Lonzo Ball with the number 1 overall pick. Be like Lakers, middle fingers to you.
What do you think about BJ Edgecombe? Do you think the Sixers could go 0 for 5 in the past 20 years with their draft picks?
I'll tell you this: I think he's a boom or bust player. Like over the next 5 years, this kid could develop into an Anthony Edwards, or he could just be Shaden Sharp. Which Shaden Sharp is not terrible, but it's like you could be so high.
Young. He's so
yeah.
Young. He could explode.
But
you don't get an Anthony Edwards every day.
My point is, you could be so high up here, or you could be like in the middle of the pack. So VJ Edgecombe, he has the athleticism of an Anthony Edwards. He doesn't have the jump shot yet, but he could build it. We've seen Anthony Edwards do it, so he's very athletic, though. I mean, the way he flies up, dunks on people, it's impressive. And the Sixers, in recent memory, I can't think of them having somebody like that. It's kind of like, and I don't want to be, always bringing up the Warriors just because I'm a fan, but when they drafted Jonathan Kuminga, they never had something like that either. It was new. That's kind of what I see VJ Edgecombe coming into the Philadelphia 76ers. The last time I could think of a slashing player like that was Andre Iguodala.
Yeah, I mean.
So you have it's exciting. It's exciting for the city to have somebody like that who's gonna create flashy plays, give you fast break windmills. You don't get that on every team.
We'll be talking about VJ Edgecombe in the coming episodes with Elliot coming on. Of course, he's on his way out to Syracuse right now to pursue his master's in communications. Congratulations to him. I'm interested to see what Trent thinks is gonna happen with the Heat because they got a lot of cap space after offloading Jimmy Butler. They obviously just extended Tyler Hero. There's no good free agents though.
Yeah, but they do have some good. They did have some good young players. Khalil Ware, I'm a huge fan. He's a really good D&3 guy at the 5. Like he blocks shots well, moves his feet, he shoots the ball. He's pretty good in the paint too. I love Khalil Ware. I think he could become a top 10 center in the league over the next couple of years. That's how highly I think of him. You still have Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. Like you still have Jaime Jaquez. The team still got some pieces that you can build around. Andrew Wiggins still up down there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that could happen with that team. They got some assets. I would not be surprised if Giannis ends up on the Heat.
Yeah, I think they're looking to trade Wiggins and a couple other pieces. I know they got some picks that they could give up as well. I think they're trying to target somebody big. They need their net superstar that they don't have.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We are at the 49-minute mark, so it is a 10-minute rally of the NFL preview. What have you seen in OTAs that's really catching your eyes?
I've seen a lot of Jaden Higgins on the Texans, which is good. Obviously, Stephon Diggs leaving. You have Tank Dell out for the year, so you're gonna need somebody to step up as wide receiver 2 and 3. I don't know how Christian Kirk is gonna fit in. I think Christian Kirk and the other Iowa State receiver they drafted are gonna be fighting for the slot spot. But I'm glad that Jalen Noel and Christian Kirk are gonna be fine for playing time. But I think Jaden Higgins has solidified himself as that 2 next to Nico Collins. And man, he's good. He's fast. He has smooth hands. He could have a spectacular season because C.J. Stroud, as much as he loves throwing to Nico Collins, his wide receiver 2 produces as well too. So he could be a good fantasy guy too.
Yeah, and I was pissed when the passed up on him. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, they got TreVeyon Henderson, good job, but like they didn't do enough to go get Jaden Higgins. He was before TreVeyon, but I think they wanted him, and then they traded back. Maybe they should have traded up. I don't know, but watching
Kyle Williams. I've heard a lot. I didn't watch a lot of Kyle Williams in college, but I've heard a lot about him. So I think y'all got yourself a good pick with Kyle Williams.
I can give you a little rundown of Kyle Williams from what I know.
Talk to me.
Kyle Williams has got a lot of speed. He is wicked fast. He is going to break apart secondaries, is what I've seen. He did that a lot in college, and I think he has the capability of doing it now because he has those Y routes that go all the way from maybe like the 50 to the 30, and by the time he's at the 30, the safety is still at the 40. Like, there's a lot of space he creates going downfield. I think Kyle Williams is going to be a great player, but I'm more interested to see what happens with Stephon Diggs. Come back here. He's making cuts. He looks good for now. We'll see what happens there, but I mean, I'm just excited that the Pats have got a watchable product.
Well, I'll ask you this. I have in my mind, I know what y'all 3 receivers are gonna look like, but who do you think are y'all? Obviously, Diggs at the 1, but who do you think your other two receivers will be in the depth chart?
Of the 6, that's been a question a lot of people have been asking.
Yeah,
I think
I could give you mine.
6 receive. Well, I'll go. Let me go first because
Go ahead.
Mine's gonna surprise some people. Okay, so I think you're gonna keep obviously Diggs, Mac Hollins. You just signed him. You can't get rid of him.
So you got Mac Collins at the
drafted
2.
Kyle Williams. You just drafted Kyle Williams, so you gotta keep him. Pop Douglas will be the 4th. Now you get down the line and you're like, all right, there's 2 more spots. Who is there gonna be there? Who's gonna be there? I think
You got the Javon Baker. You got Javon
Baker, you got Keyshawn Booty, you got Jalen Polk, you got Kendrick Bourne. There's a lot of movement that's going to happen.
Jalen Polk, my goodness. And to think that Jalen Polk is probably out of the 6, he's 5 or 6. He's 5 or 6. Seriously. He's not better than Pop Douglas. He's not. Keyshawn Booty showed better last
Booty's
year.
my 5th. I think Keyshawn Booty had an outrageously good year last year. And
so you have Polk at your 6, right? You have Polk at your 6.
Unless they trade Kendrick Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne is still a so Jalen Polk is at the bottom of the bottom, is what you're saying.
He's at 7. Him and Baker are fighting for 7, and I don't think they carry 7.
My goodness. Well,
season's going to be very telling because if Kendrick Bourne looked like how he did last year, the Patriots are not going to bring him back. They're going to trade him somewhere. They're going to get off that $33 million contract that they signed.
Well, I'll tell you
they're going to invest in Paul.
I think this is how I would put them. Stephon Diggs, receiver 1. Keyshawn, no, not Keyshawn.
Kyle Williams.
Pop Douglas at the 2. Kyle Williams at the 3. Pop Douglas, I would make your slot, while I have Kyle Williams and Stephon Diggs on the outside.
I agree. That's what I was thinking.
I'll probably put Booty at the 4. Again, we saw some games last year. His questions has always been the hands. Last year, he had some better catches. Then after that, you can make it what you want. Obviously, they're going to try to give Polk snaps because he was a high overall pick last year. So they're not going to give up on him. They're going to give him snaps. But he just looked really questionable last year. And that could have been due to the situation. So he could end up taking Pop Douglas' spot. Who knows? But Pop Douglas have been the Patriots' best receiver the last 2 years.
Yeah, we have breaking news. Nas Reed is going to sign a new 5-year, $125 million contract to stay with the Minnesota Timberwolves. What's your reaction to that? That is breaking news live on the podcast.
Okay.
Actually, so
I wasn't expecting it to happen this soon. I did think they were gonna resign him, but $25 million a year. Okay, that's a high contract for Nas Reed. But I mean, you had to pay him. He provided what he provided this year. He's a really good former sits man of the year. He's been doing it the last 4 years, so you had to pay him, and he'll be continuing to produce going forward.
Yeah, and just making sure what the number is for this. So yeah, it's gonna be 25 a year, as you said. So
25, 5 years. Yep.
Yeah, so that's not a bad contract for a solid center that comes off the bench for you. But back to the NFL. What's going on in Cincinnati, man? What is going on in Cincinnati? They just completely destroyed their cap space, signing 2 wide receivers that they have no business re-signing. They don't want to re-sign an edge. And they're completely shafting their draft pick, their first-round draft pick. Who wants to go to Cincinnati now? Like, come on. If I'm Joe Burrow, I want out. Seriously, this is ridiculous.
It makes no sense. Well, I mean, Trey Hendrickson has to get paid. Shamar Stewart has to get paid. That's your first-round overall pick. And it's just gritty what they've been doing to him. I think they're trying to take his guaranteed money away. And obviously, you don't want to play under a non-guaranteed contract if you're a rookie, because if you get hurt, you don't get paid. So I think it's just terrible for them. For the Cincinnati Bengals, what they've been doing, and obviously, and I think to your point, Will, it makes other players around the league look at the team and they're like, I don't want to play for that team because if they can do it to them, they might do it to me.
If you have all these doubts in a player, why would you pick him with the 17th pick? What are you doing? Like, there was other edges on the board that were solid. This is a very good edge class. If you were not that sold on Shamar Stewart, why did you pick him? Why? Was
I have
it
to
a reach?
agree with
Was
you.
it a desperate pick? I mean, why? I don't understand this pick, if I'm going to be honest, if you're not going to sign him. I mean, Shedeur Sanders has been signed, and he was a 5th-round pick. So this is why I'm like, what's the point of drafting a player and then being like, all right, well, we're not going to give you all the money, by the way, so go sit there and learn the playbook, and we'll give you we'll give you our check when we're ready. Give me
I
a
think
break. The Bengals are a joke.
Yeah, I think this was their plan. In their minds, they were like, we're going to draft Jamar Stewart. We're going to trade Trey Hendrickson. And then we're just going to sign Jamar Stewart. But through the process, they got gritty. They were like, you know what? No, we're not going to trade Trey Hendrickson. He's too good of a player. We're going to keep him. We're going to draft Jamar Stewart. But in the process, we're going to try to scam Jamar Stewart so we could pay Trey Hendrickson. And obviously, you're not expecting a rookie to hold out, because it's not to his benefit. He doesn't want to miss a year of football. So Cincinnati thinks they have the leverage. But Jamar Stewart ended up being a more brave player than they thought, and now he's holding out, and it's hurting them. It's hurting them now.
Yeah, and I think this is just terrible business by the Bengals. You gave out 2 massive contracts to wide receivers. You are now paying the highest paid wide receiver in the league in Jamar Chase. Your cap space is limited. No one's going to want to go to your team. What are you going to do? You're going to hang out with the 3 stooges of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow? That ain't enough. That ain't going to win you anything.
And the defense, they made minimal improvements through free agency and the draft, but that's still a bad defense. They're still got.
And the thing I can't stand is, like, if the Bengals don't win this year, they're gonna fire Zach Taylor, and it's all gonna be his fault.
And it's not. Like, and it's just not.
It's not. It's the front office being a complete disaster. That's the reality of this situation.
And well, the thing is, we've known them to be a cheap organization since the beginning. They didn't like paying their receivers. They didn't want to pay Chad Ochocinco. They didn't want to pay AJ Green. They've always been like this. They've always been.
Did nothing.
They've always wanted. He was just there for the ride.
Now he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to a Super Bowl, see what it's like." This is not my energy. I'm too good. I'm good for this. What did he say? He didn't like playing in New England or something. I don't
pulled the whole opposite.
The Belichick locker room was wild, so I don't blame him.
He pulled the whole opposite of a Randy Moss.
Yeah, Randy Moss showed out. I mean, undefeated season, mossing, completely like defining his last name on Revis Island, which was ridiculous. One-handed catch. Who remembers that?
And then the catch on 3 people was insane too, in the end zone.
Randy Moss's best years were with the Patriots. I feel like, as insane as it is to say,
crazy.
It's easier said than done when you have Tom Brady back, but whatever. Early predictions. Give me 3 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that you think will make it this year.
Okay,
we'll sign off for the night.
Let me just look at my table right quick.
I got 3 teams. I'm gonna go with the Patriots because of all the offseason upgrades they've made. I think they are going to replace the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos are going to make the playoffs again. And then moving on into the NFC, I have a feeling Dallas is going to be back this year. They got a healthy team. They should be back. I think they're going to be a problem. I think they'll be a wild card at max, but they'll make it. And then finally, in the NFC West, you're going to love me for this one. I think the Niners, they're going to find a way to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and again, you know, Mikael Williams has potential to be one of the best edge rushers in the class. I'll say even he has potential to be even better than Abdul Carter. So
you guys a lot of players, but I think you guys still have the key pieces that you need.
We still have one of the best offenses in the league. That's what people don't think about. We still have George Kittle, still have Christian McCaffrey. If healthy, you know he could be the number 1 running back in the league. Brandon Ayuk. We drafted Ricky Pearsall last year. Jawan Jennings. The receiving core, it could be middle of the pack in the league, but Brock Purdy could still work with that, and he still has.
You still got Trent Williams too. I mean, it's not like you traded the greatest.
And you still have arguably the best tight end in football, right? If you want to give it to Brock Bowers, sure, but George Kittle has been doing this for 5 years, and he's been damn good at it.
I need another year of consistency. I need 2 good years of football before I'm like, all right, you're the best.
All right, I could give you my 5 teams here, and I think the 49ers are going to be a team that's going to make it. I think Cincinnati is going to make it this year, regardless of the defense. Regardless of the defense, I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are going to be enough.
I think they're absolutely smoked. I'm not going to lie to you, but whatever. I could just be being biased.
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And then with this last one, I mean, it's a toss-up for me between New England and Miami. Because a healthy Miami team healthy Tyreek Hill, healthy Jalen Waddle. Yes, they're not good enough to win a Super Bowl, Will, but they're good enough to get you to a playoff game because that defense is not terrible. So I think I'm going to give my third spot to the Miami Dolphins.
I don't think they're going to make it. I don't think Tua's reliable enough. I think Tyreek Hill likes to drive too fast on the highway. And I think that defensive line is a mess. I think they're going to miss Javon Holland more than the people think they will.
You know what, Will? I'll give you a better one, Will. The Atlanta Falcons. They're definitely a playoff team this year. That's my 3.
What did Michael Penix prove to you to make you say, okay, they're a playoff team?
Well, I think Michael Penix is going to come back being a better quarterback this year than he was last. And obviously, they've been saying he's been looking good at OTAs and now training camp. You have Kyle Pitts. Regardless of what people say about Kyle Pitts, I think he's still a solid tight end. He's not terrible. You got Drake London. Darnell Mooney looked great last year. You have him back. And then you also have Bijan Robinson, a good offensive line, and the defense got better. You drafted two edge rushers in Jalen Walker and I forget who the other one was, but 2 first-round edge rushers. Jr. James Pierce, yep. You have 2 first-round edge rushers.
Who was the number 1 pick presumptively going into the
You signed some D tackles. You still got AJ Terrell. You signed another secondary guy, which I'm blanking on right now, but I could look up the depth chart right now, but the Falcons on paper are a really good team. And I think
wouldn't surprise me. They were sniffing around last year in the playoffs, but the defense let them down was the problem.
And being in the conference they're the best team in that conference. They're the best team in that conference.
I think Tampa's still the best. I could see
it.
Playoffs. They're getting Mike Evans back. They just added Emeka Egbuka to the slot. I mean, that's a team that I would watch out for offense. They have one of the best offenses in the NFC, without question. Yep. Defense, offense is a problem, though. I mean, I think Emeka Egbuka might be the best wide receiver in this class. I'm not even gonna lie to you, and I love that pick because preparing for.
And you still have Jalen.
Life after
and Chris Godwin. And then you have Jalen McMillan at the 4. And then you even have even the 5th wide receiver is decent enough. We've seen him score a lot of touchdowns, which I'm blanking on his name right now, but even he's been good in his career so far in the NFL. But I'm looking at the Falcons roster and you look at this defense. The point
is, I mean, they're I hate to say it, but the Bucs are a wide receiver factory. They really are.
Right, and let me read you this Falcon defense this year, which is improved. You still got AJ Terrell at corner, right? You have Jesse Bates at safety, Jordan Fuller at safety. You drafted Xavier Watts. You drafted Caden.
That was a good pick. I remember that was a good pick.
Yep, you drafted Caden Elis. You have Divine Diablo at linebacker as well. The edge rushers, obviously, you have James Pierce Jr. and you have Jalen Walker. So the team could be really good this year. Well, obviously, we talked about the offense. The third wide receiver is questionable and Ray McLeod. But besides that, I mean, it's a really deep team.
Yeah.
Make some noise. They can make some noise for sure.
It could be a problem. We'll see what happens.
I think it's all going to depend on Michael Penix like it's been in recent years for the Falcons. They've had the roster, they just haven't had the quarterback. Kirk Cousins obviously wasn't the guy. They're hoping Michael Penix is. And I'm not really much sold on what he did last year, but I'm sold on the prospect I've seen in college, Will. And when he had Rome Odunze and when he had, we had Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk. He was a very solid. He was really good quarterback.
Jalen Polk was good because Rome Odunze got double teamed. That's why. Everyone forgets that. McMillan was better. I hate to say it, everyone. I don't know why the Pats said, let's take Jalen Polk in the second round. Whatever.
Well, you know what it was? Jalen McMillan.
They picked the wrong receiver. They picked the wrong Washington receiver. That's what they did.
The problem was that Jalen McMillan was always getting hurt, so Polk was getting number 2 reps. And again, Rome Odunze was getting double teamed, so Jalen Polk was getting all this slot production, and he just getting slants.
Yeah, and Jalen Polk had a great Sugar Bowl.
Shit, Will, you throw me out there, I might be able to catch some passes. Shit.
All right, well, that's one way to end it. thank you for watching the first episode of the We Talk All Sports podcast. Hopefully Trent and Elliot will join us soon, but this was a fun episode, of course.
Had to get it going somehow.
Had to get it going. Trent will, of course, come with that Cowboys energy and a lot of opinions in favor of the Yankees, the Heat, and the Cowboys, a bunch of teams that aren't very liked throughout the United States. And, of course, Elliot will wear his Kelly Green shirt everywhere because he's an Eagles fan, and they just won the Super Bowl. For Will and Julio, we're signing off. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Have a good evening, everyone, and enjoy NBA free agency. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.